Welcome to the Mystic Media channel. I'm your host, Rabina Rastavan, aka the Realist Astrologer. And here is the first reading of a few that I will be doing for the month of April. So here are the free readings for the month of April. And the first one is going to be for Augusta Vigil. Now, Augusta has a very special situation, and her question says it all. So her question is, am I a black widow? So she came to me after I posted the free readings for the month of March, and she sent me an email just detailing some of the events that have transpired during her life surrounding death. So she buried her fiance at age 23. She buried another lover at age 40. Her son's dad, Kevin, was murdered 2 weeks ago on March 21st. And another guy died 3 days later who she had a fling with on March 24th. And then after she had wrote me, one of her high school friends died on April 10th. But before that, I skipped a part. Kevin, her son's father, his best friend, died on April 9th. And then one of her ex-boyfriends that she dated for 3 years, he died on April 14th. So Augusta, I agree, you do have a lot of depth surrounding you just by me looking at your chart. Of course, you know, because you've been through it. So I'm here to give you some insight and understanding regarding why there's so much depth in your life. So you asked the question, am I a black widow? And my answer to you is no, but it is part of your purpose to experience death in this lifetime, and death in terms of it being up close and personal. So let me just get into your chart and explain why this is. So Augusta was born August 19th, 1968. That gives her a birth number of 19, and it breaks down to 10 and 1. And then the theme of that 19, 10, and 1, one of the themes is men. So you mentioned it's mainly the men in your life who seem to meet with untimely deaths. So your birth number being 19 reflects that. And then also your life path number of 6 reflects just the dynamics in your personal relationships. So with your birth number being 19, like I said, that brings a strong male theme. And then also your sun is at the 26th degree of Leo, and that deals with karmic induced challenges with men. That 26 can be particularly challenging because it breaks down to 8. Any variation of 8 is going to deal with heavy karma. So right out the gate, with your sun being at the 26th degree of Leo, Leo deals with men. That's pointing to karmic induced challenges pertaining to men. And then your sun is in the 12th house, and that is a karmic house. So that exacerbates the challenges dealing with men. And then to bring the theme of death into play, your sun is in square to Neptune, and Neptune is at the 23rd degree of Scorpio. And not only that, let me see, Neptune rules your 8th house, and the 8th house deals with death. So the theme of death is very pronounced in your chart just by those two factors alone. So let me just repeat that. Your sun is in square to Neptune, and Neptune is at the 23rd degree of Scorpio, and it's conjoined to your 4th house cusp. More on that in a minute. But it's ruling your 8th house. That's the house of death. So the theme of death is very strong in your chart. And also there is a T-square that is comprising your sun, Neptune, and the midheaven. And your midheaven is at the 22nd degree of Taurus. That 22nd degree is a fated degree. So it could deal with fated circumstances that befall you, especially concerning the men in your life, because it's part of this T-square. So again, you have a T-square consisting of the sun in square to the Taurus midheaven. The Taurus midheaven is opposing Neptune in your 4th house cusp, and then Neptune is squaring the sun. So that sun square Neptune, that is one of the most challenging aspects of your chart. That's one of the most challenging aspects for anybody to deal with, because a lot of what happens is going to be beyond your control, and that can deal with a lot of sorrowful circumstances, loss, including loss through death, because Neptune is in Scorpio. Sacrifice is a major theme of that Sun square Neptune. And then your sun is running parallel to the fixed star Ras Al Hag, and that can point to troubling circumstances, including with women. It can deal with infections, poisoning, what have you, but just know that that's one of the stars that's contributing to these sorrowful circumstances. But it also promotes mystical healing as well. Now, another indicator of the death theme in your chart is your Juno. The asteroid Juno in your chart is at the 5th degree of Scorpio. That happens to be right on my midheaven. So that's one of the reasons why you came to me for this free reading and why you found my YouTube channel, all that. So that Juno at the 5th degree of Scorpio points to the death theme, because Scorpio deals with death. So this basically, Juno is basically the asteroid that points to the main challenges in your relationships, the main issue, the main complaint. And with your situation is definitely death, because you buried a fiance at age 23, buried another lover at age 40. Your son's father was murdered 2 weeks ago. Well, but be more about 3 weeks now. So yeah, you definitely have it rough in the deaf department. And then so let's just go now, let's go into the underlying reason why this is happening in your life. So the reason goes back to the nodes, of course, and I always harp on the nodes because the nodes are very important in astrology. They are the foundation for everything else in your chart. So your south node's at the 11th degree of Libra, and it's in the second house. So that alone basically points to past lives of you being too materialistic, you being too superficial, and basically because of that Libra influence, and because the south node's at the 11th degree, basically that's pointing to you basically treating people like pawns, or using people like pawns, where you were too strategic, where you came between people. The key word that I came up with when I saw this south node was mercenary. So basically, you were like a mercenary. Let me just read to you what the definition of a mercenary is. Now, a lot of times you'll hear that term in times of war, but a mercenary doesn't necessarily have to do with war alone. So let me just read this definition, because that's my intuition first said mercenary. Like that's what you were in a past life, which would explain why these things are happening in this current lifetime for you. So the definition of mercenary is of a person or their behavior primarily concerned with making money at the expense of ethics. And then there's a little sample sentence. She's nothing but a mercenary little gold digger. So here's the synonyms. Money-oriented, grasping, greedy, acquisitive, avaricious, covetous, bribable, venal, which is that's the root word Venus, venal, money. So with that south node in the second house in Libra, it seems like you play people against each other for your own material gain. And also, you could have actually been a mercenary in a time of war, where basically you sided with the highest bidder. Whoever was willing to pay you the highest, that was the side you were willing to kill for. So the death theme could be related to your past life, where you were like a mercenary. And in that vein, you could have been like one of those snipers, one of those people that are just like a rogue soldier, and you're going to do some type of work for some government that's at war, or whatever you're doing, secret operations or whatever like that. Also, you could have had a past life as a litigator, not just any type of lawyer, but a lawyer that's always in court. And basically where, he's very sue happy. So chasing ambulances and things like that. Ambulance chaser. You got those type of lawyers like that who are always looking for a big payday. So they're always looking out for those class action lawsuits or whatever like that, where they can end up getting a lot of money, or those tort cases, things like that. So you could have been a litigator in a past life, and you could have ended up causing a lot of people their livelihood, or maybe even their own lives, as a result of you being kind of like a very ruthless attorney. Also, a legislator is another possible past life. past life career that you could have had, and in the process of you being a legislator, you created some draconian laws that really resulted in people basically not being able to survive, because that second house deals with survival. That second house is very akin to Taurus. So when I saw your South Node in the second house, I was like, okay, maybe she was akin to kind of like a cult leader, or maybe you were so much about the state or whatever like that that you didn't care about the individual. And also with that South Node in Libra, you were too tit for tat. That could deal with miscarriages of justice. So again, going back to the legal theme. Also indulgences. Indulgences in the vein of back in the day, and this goes back to the Taurus second house influence. Back in the day, if people wanted to gain special favor with the clergy, they would just pay the priest or whatever money or gold or whatever like that, so that their sins could be absolved or whatever like that. So you could have had people paying you indulgences and you would wipe their record clean or whatever, but whoever didn't couldn't pay up, they were going to be convicted or whatever like that. So you could look at your past lives as being the reason why you experience so much death in this lifetime, and mainly because your North Node is in Aries and it's in the eighth house, the house of death. So that basically means that you're going to be facing death directly head on in this lifetime. Now, again, going back to that South Node in Libra, that basically means in this lifetime, you're not supposed to place too much emphasis on being in relationships. So whenever you try to be in a relationship, that's when that person can get taken away from you. And this is because you took people for granted, or you used them like pawns. You were basically doing that whole grand chessboard thing. Look up that term. Matter of fact, I'm going to pull it up right now, because there's this political strategist called Zbigniew Brzezinski. And he wrote this book called The Grand Chessboard. And it's basically about geopolitics and taking over the world, but doing it in a very strategic way where none of the sides understand what's really going on. So just a little bit about this grand chessboard. American primacy and its geostrategic imperatives. So you could have been a person like that where, again, the person didn't matter. It was all about the cause. It was all about, okay, we have to have this certain type of society. We have to have this certain type of structure. So anybody that is not going to conform, because that second house is very much about conformity. Anybody that didn't want to conform, you were going to be taken out, or basically you were going to be a collateral damage, you might as well say. So using people as human shields too could be a manifestation of that South Node at the 11th degree of Libra in your second house. So basically, in this lifetime, you're going to have to atone for those sins that you created or committed in past lifetimes, and it's going to be through some of the people that mean the most to you, and it's going to be through tragic circumstances, including death. That's just the way life works. It's all about give and take. It's all about what goes around comes around. It's all about that wheel of karma that keeps going round and round. So people think that they can, escape judgment by some of the things that they do, but it's going to come back to you one way or another, whether it's going to be in this lifetime or the next. So a lot of the times we go through things in this current incarnation and we wonder why these things happen to us. And it's because we're not taking into account that we are infinite souls that just continue to regenerate into the next life. And we're carrying a bunch of past life baggage. And due to past life transgressions, we have to learn some hard lessons in this lifetime. So you also have Pluto in the second house cusp, and that reinforces the North Node in the eighth house, the theme of death, because Pluto is the planet of death. So anytime you become too possessive of things or people, anytime you try to hold on to the material, or you esteem the material above the spiritual, that's when you can end up losing, and the loss can even include death. Some other factors in your chart that points to these to the death theme. You have Capricorn intercepted in your fifth house. That's using the Placidus house system, and that's why I love Placidus, because it's going to give you those intercepted houses. Those intercepted signs in the houses, they're going to tell you they're basically going to let you know that there's some interesting energy going on right in that house. So Capricorn is another sign that can pertain to depth. And with it being in your fifth house, that deals with love, and it deals with your lovers. So there it is right there. Also, Saturn runs parallel to Betelgeuse. Saturn is ruler of Capricorn, so it's co-ruler of your fifth house, and it's running parallel to Betelgeuse. And Betelgeuse is a very violent, nefarious, and deleterious fixed star. And if you've seen the movie Beetlejuice, you'll know what I'm talking about, because Beetlejuice was off the chain. Like, he was just trying to create havoc. Also, you have Neptune conjoined to Agena, and as I said, Neptune rules your eighth house, the house of death. Agena is a fixed star that can deal with disappointment and disillusionment through love. You got Pluto conjoined to Denebula, and that is a fixed star that can deal with tragic circumstances. Your ascendant is right on Regulus. That's a fixed star that can basically bring you to great heights, but it can also deal with a downfall as well. So that could deal with the men that you deal with, because Regulus is in Leo. So it could deal with the men that you deal with meeting with some type of downfall. And then the midheaven is conjoined to Capitalist, and that could deal with aggressiveness, male energy in particular. Let me see what else you got. You got that wicked Virgo stellium. So you got Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, Pluto, and Uranus in Virgo. So what that's going to do, it can help you, but it can hurt you. So that stellium in Virgo, it basically keeps you engaged in that South Node Libra mindset, because instead of being in relationships, personal relationships, you'll come from a position of giving someone a helping hand. But in that respect, you may go too far and become too involved in the affairs of others. So you always have to check yourself when it comes to helping people, when it comes to even working, because it'll be easy to get too wrapped up in the affairs of others. When you do that, that's when chaos tends to ensue. But that Virgo stellium is also letting you know that in this lifetime, basically your purpose when dealing with other people is to serve, is to help, is to also be like an instructor, things like that. Be a model for other people to follow. So that's a big one too, because you were a big follower in past lives, or basically you were dependent upon people because they were basically the essence of your whole makeup and livelihood. Because like I said, you played people against each other. You treated people like they were pawns. So you were constantly playing this game of chess with people. So you needed people. But in this lifetime, you have to be more of a leader, hence your North Node in Aries. And with it being in the eighth house, that's you affecting the lives of others in a positive manner. It could go either way. It could be negative or positive, but because you are of the light, of course it's going to be positive. But what comes along with that is death. Now, one thing you got to understand is that with that North Node in the eighth house in Aries, it's just letting you know that death is a natural part of life. So basically get used to the fact that people around you will die. You know, people who are closest to you will die. If you have another lover in the future, there's a good chance that he will meet with an untimely death. That's just going to be a constant theme in your life. So the more, like, the sooner you get used to it, the better. Let me see what else you got. Just going back to that Capricorn intercepting your fifth house. Saturn, ruler of Capricorn, is retrograde, which makes matters worse. It's in the ninth house, and that can cause you to lack faith because of all the death that has came to your doorstep. And Saturn is in quincunx to Neptune in Scorpio. So there's that death theme again. Death is written all over your chart. Now, back to the nodes again. With your South Node being at the 11th degree of Libra, that reinforces your life path number of 6, because Libra deals with relationships, 6 deals with relationships. And then with your with your birth number of 19, that reinforces your North Node in Aries, because that 19 is a very masculine number, and so is Aries. Aries is a masculine sign. So it's like you are half and half. You have one foot in one world, one foot in the other world. So the sooner you could just let go of the idea that you have to be in a relationship, or that you need to be married, or that you need to find someone, um, the deaths that come to you, or the deaths that occur, may start to become more, fewer and far between. And once you really start to acknowledge that death is a natural part of life, and it's nothing to um, nothing to have disdain about, because you know that the soul is going to live on. And another thing I need to tell you too, um, more I'm going to say most, if not all, of your relationships with men will be soulmate relationships, meaning these are going to be relationships with men that you've known from past lives, and that deals with that North Node in Aries in the 8th house. And some of these men may be coming with past life beef, and that beef will basically transpire through you losing them. Before you're ready. Basically they're going to be taken from you before you are ready to let go of them. And I forgot to mention, this is a really key factor. You have the asteroid Pallas conjoined to that south node in Libra. That's what made me say mercenary, because Pallas is like a warrior. Pallas is like a fighter for justice and all that type of stuff. So again, you could have been a litigator as well, but you could have been one of those dark-sided litigators that was very sue happy and that would sue the pants off of people, and you didn't care about the human component and all that type of stuff. So you might still be dealing with some legal issues in this current lifetime because of the past life transgressions that you committed. But that's basically it. So if you have any questions, you already have my email. Just send me an email address and I'd be happy to answer whatever questions you have. But just know that this is all part of your destiny. Get used to death because it is a constant in your life. And no, you're not a black widow. But I will say that, what's the best way I could put this? Um, Death is your companion. That's the best way I can say that. And the more you become familiar with death, the easier these deaths will be. Of course, death is always going to be hard, because nobody wants to lose their loved one. But know that we're all going to the same place. Well, no, I can't say to the same place, but we all got to make that final trip. So just acknowledge that and know that, our all of our time is coming sooner or later. And it's not really about timing, it's about the meaningful interaction that you have while they are with you. It's not so much about, having this person for a certain set amount of time. It's about making the most of the time when they are in your life. So I hope you are able to gain some insight from this reading. Peace and many blessings. And if anybody would like a reading, you could go to my website at rabina.com. And if you would like to see if you have a chance for a free reading for next month, just leave your birth details along with a question. Peace and many blessings.